Hi everybody, we're still at Build 2016 and we're talking to Mark Fussell here. Hi
morning.
Mark, thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Fantastic.
So can you briefly talk about what your role is within Microsoft?
Yeah, so I'm a program manager at Microsoft. I work on the core Azure team. I work on Azure Service Fabric. And Azure Service Fabric is a product we've been building many years internally that we use in our internal services.
Yeah.
And then we announced it at Build last year, and this year, of course, we've got new announcements about how we brought it out to the rest of the world to use.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Yeah. Yes. So actually the big announcement we had yesterday was that Service Fabric had GA'd on Windows Azure. And so you can go up to Windows Azure now and you can go through the portal there and you build an Azure Service Fabric cluster. And so that was our big announcement yesterday, yes.
Yeah, that was
Very
actually
cool.
the biggest highlight for us.
Yes.
We were thinking, okay, will it be GA? But
yes.
That was
It
what
was
we were
exciting.
waiting for.
And we had a great keynote. We had this company from Iliad come along and they did this great demo with a game.
Oh, that was a great demo.
Yeah, it was.
Best demo for distributed systems ever.
Yeah, it was, yes. It wasn't very enterprisey.
No, we call it enterprise gaming. So
Yeah, it was, yes.
it involves a lot of people, so we call it enterprise.
So we are super excited about Service Fabric. We've been using it in the preview program.
Oh, you have?
Yes, I even think our logo was on the slide you presented.
Oh, right,
We've been
good.
using it for one of our customer cases. So
Yes.
I'm very excited that it's now generally available and I can now push it towards production scenarios. So for the people who don't know Service Fabric that well, can you give us a brief introduction?
Yes, well, I think first you need to start with this concept of what you're trying to build in terms of a cloud service. And what we've seen over the years is people have taken their code and they've moved it to Azure in sort of a lift and shift strategy. So they've taken some VMs, they've moved their machines, they've moved their databases, and that works very, very well.
Yeah.
But then what usually happens, you start to realize that there are some scale limitations in your code, or you're trying to build a service more.
Yeah.
If you're starting to build a service, you need more things than just a sort of machines you run there. You've got to think about how you scale out and scale down.
Right.
So Service Fabric thinks about how you start to build a native service that you run in the cloud.
And then you can actually take advantages of all the cool stuff that the cloud gives you instead
Correct.
of just lifting your application and putting into a VM or stuff
Correct.
like that.
Yeah, and when you start to do this, the first thing you start to realize is that you have to sort of break your application down a little bit more. So you get into this thing that's emerging in the industry called microservices, where you start to think about how I'm decomposing my application down a bit more. And microservices really is just about two things. It's one about how I can break the application apart so I can have more agility, so I can deliver features at a faster rate because I'm running a service. And secondly, it's about scaling different pieces of my app. So we've had some good examples in our program for example, we had a company in the UK called TalkTalk, and they do video content delivery.
Okay.
Think of them a bit like Netflix type thing, yes. And they did a lift and shift to Azure, and they had a service running there. And then when they had more and more content delivery, they had this encoding workflow that had to encode all these movies for iOS, Android, and things like this.
Very compute-intensive stuff.
Very compute-intensive stuff, yes. And the original design was a database where all the workflow is generated inside a database. But that, of course, became a bit of a bottleneck for them. So just that piece, they decided we'll turn this into a Service Fabric application. And so they broke that out and made they broke it apart into, instead of one giant service, they had 8 individual little applications, one that did encoding, one that did the workflow, and then each one of those they could build and deploy, and they were able to iterate faster, and so they were able to get the scale and the agility. And then, this now, they're very happy with the scale and they have these things.
Yeah,
yes.
So you're moving more towards a cloud native scenario. So what does that mean for web and worker roles? Is that old school and we shouldn't use that anymore?
Well,
So 1980.
well, the first thing to be clear is like web and worker roles are not going away. Yes? Okay, so
that's good to know.
That's good to know. So don't think all of a sudden So they're going to be there for many, many years. But what Service Fabric does is it does bring you some additional benefits. And what those benefits are is that the most important thing is that Service Fabric separated the infrastructure from the code. In cloud services, they're bound together like this. You have this one VM, one app, and so you ended up doing a lot of deployment. So when you separate those two, there's some benefits that you get. First, you get high density, so I can put more applications now inside my cluster.
Utilize the CPU power that you have and memory and stuff like that.
Correct, yes. So you can densify. The second one, of course, is you get better deployment times because you're just now deploying a code package, and so you get fast upgrades, fast config changes, and you can, today if you wait for cloud service, it takes a little while to reboot the whole VM.
20 minutes to upgrade.
Exactly, 20 minutes for upgrade. And then, of course, Service Fabric makes you think about how you pack in many more applications, and this is microservices concept of how you build these applications. So cloud services will always be there, but we think of Service Fabric as a bit like the next generation, and it's relatively easy to move your code, into that sort of environment if you want.
And it's not just .NET code that you can run on Service Fabric, because yesterday in your talk we also heard that you can basically run arbitrary frameworks and languages in Service Fabric?
Yes, I mean, we try to layer Service Fabric in the sense of if all you need is a sort of a distributed deployment service to put your code, start a bunch of executables, or what will be coming soon is launch those executables in containers if you want. You can just use it like that. Then, of course, you can choose to use some programming models where we integrate that with the with Service Fabric better, and then you get some additional benefits.
And that's the stateful, stateless services and the actors, right?
Yeah. Correct. Yes. Yes. Those are those programming models we provide, and then by adopting into those, it helps you think about the design of your applications and your services more. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, and then you can also use things like the reliable collections and stuff to manage your state and get that state really close to your computing.
And distribute it, of course, because that's the hard problem always, to distribute your state.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I mean, so what Service Fabric provides is there's two programming models it provides. So first, yes, you can deploy any piece of code you want. And that's great.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome, yeah. So in many ways, Service Fabric is it's a container service.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
It distributes your code and puts in a set of containers or executables inside all of that. And well, actually, what you'll be seeing coming soon is not in the release we did right now, but when Service Fabric, we're going to do a release for Service Fabric running on Windows Server 2016, and there you'll have Windows containers, and so you'll just be able to say, Service Fabric launch these containers, and so you can point to a Docker image and download all of those, and you must be able to launch the containers if that's all you want.
Nice.
But if you do go for the programming models that we have, those are the things that help you design your application to scale out more.
Right, so you're at an even higher level of abstraction.
Correct, and there's kind of two levels there. One we have called reliable services, and I'd think of it in some ways there's two pieces to that. There's stateless and stateful, and the stateless is just like cloud services.
Yeah. Just like my worker role.
Just like your worker role, exactly. Run a piece of code, make it run on lots of machines. I want 10 instances running, a machine dies, go and find another machine, start my code up. Right. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's very familiar with many people. And it works very, very well. So you'll have many systems just built with stateless services and back-end data, but you could scale them all out, and you get high density, and you can combine, the beauty of Service Fabric, you can combine different programming models and different pieces of code.
You can just choose what fits best for your solution at the time. Yeah.
But then we also had this concept of stateful services. And the reason why we did that was because there were many scenarios where we had to have the state and code co-located. Well, one way that may help some people think about these things is like, you have stored procedures in databases, yes? Right. There's data with code. Yeah. Well, this is code with data. So we've just done this one. We've taken high availability out of the database and put it into your code.
Right. Nice way to think about that, actually.
And that way, and then the thing that kind of blows people's minds is like, well, your data is stored on the local disk and replicated and made highly available. Yes, Service Fabric is a storage technology. Yes, we replicate all of that. And then, but the important thing is that it's a highly available, consistent, guaranteed state storage inside there. You won't lose your data. It's replicated. We make sure that that's highly available.
You can get to it very easily and fast, so that's also very nice.
And the way we want to access all this data and make it easy for people is through these things we call reliable collections. Yes, and we have things like dictionary and queue. And so if you're a .NET developer and you're familiar with dictionary, and if you think about it, we had dictionary and then we had concurrent dictionary, which was single machine, multi-threaded. Well, reliable dictionary is, think of it as a multi-machine dictionary. It replicates its state. So you as a .NET developer, you just write into the dictionary, it replicates its state and made it highly available, and it's taken care of for you.
So can I use things like atomic operations? Can I get something from a reliable queue, update it in a reliable dictionary, and do that atomically?
Yes. In fact, what happens is that between a reliable queue and a reliable dictionary, you can create applications or services where you can take data that comes in from your client request, it gets put onto a queue, and then you can do a transaction pull it from the queue and write it to the dictionary, and it either guarantees to completely succeed or it rollbacks and fails. So by combining these, we just have queue and dictionary now, but by combining these reliable dictionaries, reliable data structures together, you can do these transactional operations across the board.
Okay, very cool.
Yes. Awesome. And of course you have multiple dictionaries. You have pull from a queue, I can have 5 dictionaries. One can be my, say, person data and email information and order information, and they can all be transacted together.
Okay.
So it makes it nicer for a developer to think about a transaction concept of their local data, then replicate it.
Yeah, and no need to go call an external storage.
Correct, yeah. So you end up with
great.
these designs where you don't have to have that external storage.
Yeah.
So you just have to realize that it's good to have some data close, like the data that you're operating on now, your hot data.
Yeah.
Yes. There's still need for putting data into databases because they're great at analytics and query processing and things like this.
Long-term stuff.
Long-term stuff, yes. But when you're operating on a data now, like say you have a device and it's got a temperature and you want to do the calculations on the temperature and send them email off here or a notification or some alerts or you have some rules on top of it all or some workflow, it's great for that sort of thing because you have all the data and code co-located. And then you can scale that all out. That's the beauty of it all. It's like a stamp. Scale, scale, scale.
Yeah.
I don't have to think, I have to scale my compute and then I have to scale my data, and you just stamp these things out.
Yeah.
Make sense?
One thing that I was thinking about, if you have a stateful service, and what we saw in the talk yesterday, if you do an update, you have upgrade domains and fall domains and stuff like that. That's awesome. But you can also do a rollback. And what we were wondering, what happens with the data if you do a rollback of a service that has been running for some time, then it fails and a rollback occurs? Or is that a problem that we can handle within 15 minutes?
Okay, so I mean, there's 2 pieces to this. So when you write your data, Service Fabric replicates it across a set of machines, and at that point it makes consistent. Yes, so typically, if you're doing upgrading a service, as you're upgrading a service, you're moving it from version 1 to version 2, and yes. Requests can come in and you can handle them at that time. And if requests are coming in, you will update your state according to the version that you're currently on.
Exactly.
But generally that still has to be a problem that actually still lands on the developer.
You have to design around it.
You have to design around all that. And there are ways of doing it. You have to, I know.
Will I be in the next version now?
Yeah, but I mean there are ways.
There's still
like,
a job for you now.
No, but there are ways, like for example, the default serializer that we have is the data contract serializer, and so when you upgrade the state of your data, you can use to append data at the end of all that.
Exactly.
We also encourage people to use other types of serialization. There's protocol buffers, protobuf. There's also a serializer Microsoft ships called Bond. Have you heard of Bond?
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's a serialization one, and that too has a sort of a versioning strategy around it all. So you need to make sure that you have a versioning strategy on your data to do that. Otherwise, yes, you'll get into trouble. It doesn't deal with that.
It stays a programmer problem, and you have to make sure that you are reliable and that your state is backwards compatible.
Correct. Yes. Okay. But talking about health and upgrades. Service Fabric spans everything from the developer story, the programming models, to the DevOps side of things. And this is a key thing that we spent many years getting right. How is it that I can move from version 1 to version 2 to version 3 of my application?
Yeah, exactly.
In a very controlled way.
In a controlled way, exactly. And it either moves forward or it moves back. And I'm not left in this like, I've got half of V1 and half of V2.
Or I don't know what's going on.
Or I don't know what's going on. Yes.
Yeah, we did a dotnetFlix video on the first preview of Azure Service Fabric.
I see.
With the preview portal thing, I guess it was a Windows application then. And I thought it was awesome back then, but now it's of course evolved very much. It's a very nice product.
Yes, and so I mean, in fact, that was what was in the keynote demo. We had this one where it was rolling out, and they rolled out a bad version, and the spaceship started blowing up, and then they rolled it all back, and everything was good again. But where we evolved that most of the time was that one of the core services we have in Azure that runs on Service Fabric is Azure databases, and they have 1.6 million databases, and they roll out versions of fixes all the time to different customers. And
real continuous delivery and DevOps.
Yes, and in fact, one of the interesting things I like about this is what let me give you an example. That a set of companies, oil and industry companies, came along to the SQL Azure team, and they wanted to add a new feature. They wanted to do row-level encryption inside the databases, and so the SQL Azure team worked with these companies and did the feature, built row-level encryption inside there, and then rolled it out just to their databases, and they tested it all.
Okay.
And then some financial companies came along and they tested it on them.
That's nice.
And then they rolled it out across all of Azure, and then they put it in the box product. So it's kind of interesting, it's kind of reverted around now where the box product comes last, and then they test a rolling upgrade, a test in one customer with one database, and then a few more and things like this.
Very cool.
Yes.
So one of the things I really like about Service Fabric is that it's not just on Azure servers. I can take Service Fabric and install it in my own data center on-premise, and even Linux is coming, I understand.
Yes.
So that's very valuable for our customers who may not be ready to go all in with the cloud. So we can just go for an on-prem scenario, then to a hybrid scenario, then to maybe a public cloud scenario. So the Linux preview, how's that coming along? I believe there's something in summertime we can expect something.
Yes. Well, right now we've just opened up what we've said is a limited preview. And that means we have all the bits and things like this, but like we did with our Windows version, we just want to, some people are willing to take some pain, yes?
Right.
Really what it comes down to is like, join us and have some pain. And so you can go to Service Fabric Linux as a URL, aka.ms.servicefabric Linux. You can sign up there and we'll contact you. And we're looking for people who want to sign up to using the Linux version, giving us feedback, and hopefully have a project that they focus on. It's not really just come and play with the bits. It's like, you have a project, you want to build something.
A real business scenario.
A real business scenario.
Real world problems to occur,
Real world
and then
problems.
see how we work
Yes,
with that.
and we have a couple of internal teams who are actually building on that version. So we, like Yammer, for example, have come along internally, and we're working with them for the Linux version.
Cool.
Because they work on Linux
Then
today.
we already use it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no,
Check.
I mean, they're taking the pain. So you can sign up for this program, and then what we're looking towards is sometime in the summer, as you're right, is where we want to do the public preview. And then we're going to look towards when we GA after that.
Okay.
As soon, but the idea is to try and get out the Linux version as fast as we can. Certainly, by the time we stand here next year, we'll all be hopefully cheering.
It's a date.
Hopefully. But what we also announced is Service Fabric on Windows Server.
Yeah.
So and that is available now as a public preview.
Okay.
So you can download a Service Fabric release. You can just take a set of machines, Windows Server machines, hook them all together with a network, run one PowerShell command on one of them. It'll copy the bits onto each one of the machines and build your own cluster for you. So if you've got
sounds like a fun Sunday. So
Definitely.
So if you have 3 machines on your desk, you hook them together. I did a demo yesterday where I brought 5 laptops with me, and I had a wireless adapter, and I hooked them all together and made my mini data
It's a
center.
really private cloud.
It was a really private cloud, yes.
Yeah, we were there, and then someone said, "Okay, well, what will happen if one goes down?" And then you just shut one down, and it all kept running. So that was cool.
Yes.
Right. So if I've got this private cloud with some of my own machines and I've got a public cloud, is there any way to span these data centers to create one big logical cluster?
There is. There is. Service Fabric builds clusters out of anything where there's network connectivity.
Okay.
So you can theoretically say on-premise have a set of machines and VPN into the cloud and have a set of machines here and do it across the two. We actually don't have any customers who've been doing that.
Okay.
Most of our customers,
Yet.
Well, yes.
We'll be in touch.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. But you can, Really?
Yeah,
really. So
that use case. So,
well, that's what you should be able to do. We have tried it. You can do that, but it's just you've got to make sure there's good network connectivity between them.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
And then yes, it just builds a cluster.
Okay.
You of course have to make sure. The reason why it's hard to work is because you've got to make Azure is going to give you some machines, and you're going to have some machines, and you better make sure your machines have similar fault domains and upgrade domains to help. Otherwise, the cluster will be out of balance and things. So I think that's really part of the reason today is how you have to think about the underlying physical infrastructure to make that work. But yes, that's possible in any ways. Most of the time, though, we do have customers who have an on-premise cluster where they have their code running, and then they have exactly the same code running inside Azure. And then they sort of do a burst to the cloud where you can rent their service for a while. So they give the bits to a customer who are running here, and then if they need more capacity, they say, "Oh, rent our service in the cloud," and then they pay for the extra because it's running in the cloud. And for them, it's the same bits running anywhere.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
That's more of the typical scenario.
Okay. So very cool. Do you have any questions, Edwin?
I've heard a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
But, I'm drawing a blank right now.
Yes, well, my closing statements are, I think Service Fabric is a fantastic technology. We spent a long time building this. We were thrilled yesterday to announce it, and it's and now we're excited that people can get hold of these bits. And for me, the fact that you can run this in many different environments, you can build scale-out applications with it all. We want to encourage people to build lots more programming models on this. Today we just offer the 2. We just provide the reliable service and the actors.
Yep.
But we're working with people. Actually, we're working with some companies to bring JavaScript. We're going to bring Java to the Linux one in the summer.
Okay.
And then we also want to bring Java on Windows as well.
Oh, cool.
Yes, we're going to bring it on Windows. Well, we are now. And so we want languages, frameworks.
Like Scott always says, whatever makes you happy.
Whatever makes you happy,
you
yes.
must be able to
Yes.
use that. Yeah.
And so, hopefully that helps you find the right technology for the scenario you want, and then you can run it in the place that you want as well.
exactly.
And eventually, in due course, it'll be hopefully more universal.
Ultimate
Okay.
Flexibility.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for taking the time. I know you've had some very busy days
Yes.
here.
No, it's been great talking to you guys.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks very
Right.
much.
And
Thanks.
thank you for watching. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Later.